Welcome to ABCC Radio,
where smart people listen.
Virtualization and Cloud Talk.
Featuring cutting-edge solutions from the hottest companies around the globe.
Broadcasting from the ABCC offices in sunny Sarasota, Florida.
Surrounded by computers, books, and Legos.
A Microsoft MVP, Citrix Charter CTP, VMware vExpert.
And your host, Douglas Brown.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of ABCC Radio. We have NVIDIA on the show with us today, and I'm really excited about this because we have Jared Cowart, and Jared is just Jared's a brilliant guy, and been around our space for a long time. Used to be Citrix OC, and been over at NVIDIA for many years now. And then, of course, we have Citrix Ready with us today, too, and as always, I want to give a big shout out and a thank you to the Citrix Ready folks for making these podcasts happen. I love it when we work together because, well, it's just always a great conversation, and we talk to people we might not usually talk with, although, yeah, it's just a true thrill. So on that note, today we're going to talk about what's new at NVIDIA, Citrix, all the firsts that these two companies have done together, which is quite amazing, and they'll talk a bit about that, and then just have a fun conversation. Anytime you have Jared and Sotnik on the line, it's always a fun time. So with no further ado, here's my interview with Jared from NVIDIA and Sotnik from Citrix Ready. Okay, guys, thanks so much for taking the time to do this with us. I look forward to this, and it's always fun to have Jared on the line with us, and of course Citrix Ready and Sotnik, true pleasure there too. So with no further ado, let's just dive into it. For my first question, as always, we go around and introduce people. So, Jared, who are you and what do you do over at NVIDIA?
Well, Doug, thanks for having me today. I really appreciate it. So at NVIDIA, currently, I am the technical product manager for the NVIDIA Grid solution. So NVIDIA Grid is a software solution that enables, virtual GPUs on top of our Tesla hardware. Prior to that, I was actually a solution architect at NVIDIA. Solution architect is kind of synonymous with a pre-sales engineer, kind of similar to my previous life at Citrix, where I was a sales engineer. So I left Citrix. If you remember, 5-6 years ago, there was a Jensen and Mark Templeton on stage at Synergy, where they were announcing kind of one of the very first things around NVIDIA VGPU. And I had already accepted an offer and was getting ready to go to NVIDIA to help launch that solution. So I spent some time at Citrix, about 7 years as a sales engineer. And then I moved over to NVIDIA as a solution architect. And now I made my way into the product group where I'm helping manage the overall solution. So that's kind of a little bit about my background and kind of what I'm doing now.
Yeah, and you were like Doug 2.0. You took over my job at Citrix, right?
It's funny, yeah. You actually, when you were at Citrix, you covered the Rocky Mountain region, and there's a handful of customers I went into that actually called me Doug. So you were really well known in the Rocky Mountain region with a lot of really established Citrix customers, and yeah, I would kind of classify myself as Doug 2.0, or maybe it's 0.2.
No, 2.0. I called you 2.0 because you're twice as good. So there was a
you left a legacy out there, Doug.
Absolutely.
It was a great legacy. I mean, literally, people thought I was Doug. So it was great. So
well, that makes me feel happy.
Good to be able to follow in your shoes, Doug. But yeah, I got to pick up a lot of your old customers and work with them, and you did a great job with them. So it was really, really, really fun experience being able to follow in your footsteps there.
Those were fun days. Working for Citrix was a true pleasure. So speaking of working for Citrix, we have Sotnik on the line. And Sotnik, for those who don't know who you are, who are you and what do you do?
Hey, Doug, thanks again for the opportunity to join this conversation. As usual, it is great to be here. I'm currently technical marketing for Citrix Ready team. So I've been over 7 years at Citrix, having both marketing and engineering roles played. So I think when Jared joined NVIDIA, that's in 2012, I believe. That's when I was working for Zen Server engineering team, and I served there for 3 years. And NVIDIA was one of my big focus points as well because of the virtual graphics solutions that we released first in the market. I think we should talk more about this, by the way. A lot of firsts. But yes, pretty exciting time to see how we together in Citrix and NVIDIA saw this as a problem that needs to be solved and how efficiently we actually managed to build one. So I now lead technical marketing at Citrix Ready for 4 years now, and my focus is really at virtual apps and desktops ecosystem, which was formerly known as Zen Desktop and Zen Apps. Lately, I am overseeing the Citrix Workspace offering as well, helping the ecosystem shift their product stack testing and validations with Citrix Cloud architecture. Yep.
Very cool, very cool. And you're an old hat with the ABCC Radio, right? I always enjoy having you on. So that being said,
when I joined NVIDIA, when I joined Citrix, I joined as a Zen server subject matter expert. That's me back in the days. So my first life at Citrix was an overlay covering Zen server right after the acquisition of Zen Source. So I've got some long roots in the Zen server. So it's great to know that. I didn't know that you were in the Zen server engineering team. It's great to know that.
Well, I didn't know that you were from Zen Source. Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah,
that's a great team.
When I joined Citrix, I was a MetaFrame guy. There was one product, MetaFrame.
Oh, that made Citrix true.
One product. There was no sub SMEs. There was no. You were an SE. You're a systems engineer. Period. There was eventually they started. There were the 4 products: Secure ICA, IMS, RMS, in MetaFrame, right?
Yeah.
So, but anyway, and then came Password Manager, and we all rejoiced. But so that being said, so you guys, Citrix, as you mentioned, there's been a lot of firsts and things like that. I'd love to get to that list here in a little bit. But, before we get those Citrix and NVIDIA has been working together for a long time. What's new and different, right? I mean, it's a lot of people know know that relationship. They know what NVIDIA does, or they think they do. They know what Citrix does. What's new, though? What's new?
So I can take this.
I think, yeah.
So some of the things that are new is at Synergy this year, we did kind of a remarkable first, which really kind of dives into taking the solution that we've been working with Citrix at to the next level. And one of the biggest requests over the last 5 or 6 years has been, enterprise readiness. It's been about, resiliency. It's been about, an enterprise play, being able to have this solution that we offer together in an enterprise way. And the biggest request I have received thousands of times has been migration. We need to be able to move our VGPU, or graphics-enabled virtual machines, from one host to another without downtime, without shutting them down. We could do it before. We had to shut the machine down, move it, start it back up. But it just wasn't what customers were looking for, and they really wanted the ability to be able to move these machines live, which, Doug, but it's kind of synonymous nowadays. You got to be able to move machines. I mean, we've been doing this for years, but we couldn't do it with graphics. So one of the big things we announced at Synergy, kind of the newest, coolest thing, is live migration. So again, a first, right? The first, industry first, being able to live migrate virtual machines with GPU live without any end user interruption. So that was a really big deal, being able to do that. And so now that's actually released. It's a production enterprise ready solution. And that was kind of I would say is the biggest, newest, coolest thing is that capability now.
That's very cool. What are the requirements on that? What would you do? What are the requirements on that, Jared? What do you need to do that? Is it just feature? It's just you can just do it, or anything specific?
obviously you got to have graphics cards in each host, like graphics cards. So if you got an M10 in one, you could have an M10 in another. So like graphics cards in either host. And then a lot of the requirements really come down to similar to migration requirements, right? If you want a really fast migration, you need, fast networking. And so being able to, do a migration in a decent time frame, so typical migration requirements would apply. Typically your 10 gig networking, you need, common shared storage. It's not to say that you can't do it without shared storage. You can do it, but you're going to implement now a storage motion into the mix as well. So you can absolutely do a migration without those variables. You're just going to have an impact of length of how long it's going to take. But if you're looking at designing a system with live migration, apply all the normal variables, fast networking, shared storage, same version of hypervisor, yada yada yada, and then add the new variable, which means you need to have a host with a graphics card, and where you're going to move it to needs to have a host with the same graphics card. As long as you got those things, you're in great shape.
Cool. Sotnik, did you want to add something there? I thought I heard you pipe up.
Just to add one more thing, that's right now supported with Citrix Hypervisor only solution. So it's kind of the list of one of the first that I'm really excited to talk about. And in fact, we have a great customer reference from Browning Day, Mullen Deer from BDMD, Jeremy, and I think when these guys actually implemented the VGPU live migration, the latest where it supports the release, I think it's starting Zen Server 7.3 or is it 7.3? Jared, correct me there.
Yeah.
But yes, and when he moved he actually did a GPU live migration, and then he goes back to his staff and asks like, hey, did you guys notice anything? And they're like, what? Seriously? No. And that's really the power, like what Citrix and NVIDIA totally together deliver. And just to quote Jeremy, which is a great customer reference for us, like he says, and to quote him, we are no longer tied to physical desktops. We have the ability to take inexpensive laptop to someone else's desk to collaborate. So in short, like we have an $800 laptop that gives us a $400 desktop experience. And I think that's powerful. And that talks a lot about what Citrix and NVIDIA together does.
You got it. That being said, you guys have mentioned the firsts, and there is a lot of firsts that Citrix and NVIDIA have. Would you like to go down that that path for a little bit and maybe share some of these firsts with us? Yeah.
So I think so. This started back in 2006, where our partnership, when we first delivered the GPU pass-through solution, and that was for Boeing in a private release. And back then, their files transfer were taking hours and putting the company's IP at risk. And so Citrix and NVIDIA enhanced their technology offering and solved that problem that was never solved before, to be honest. And this brought us actually into the market. And by 2009, I think that's when Zen Desktop HDX 3D Pro was released, and that supported the OpenGL graphic accelerated solution. And post that, we kept receiving traction, and one of the early successes, we had a lot of more part customers, Vesta, ABB, Volvo, as many more popular brands, but the adoption was still, I would say, low, as the cost was a barrier for many organizations. And by 2011, we actually released the first direct GPU pass-through solution, which was supported back then by Zen Server 6.0. And that supported concurrent users, because of which the single host support quadrupled, and there was a cost savings, of course, that is attached to it. 2014, I believe, was more of the adding the services. We added the first MCS and MPVS peripheral supports. We expanded VGPU to vSphere 6, so that was again the first, where it became Citrix and then Desktop became truly hypervisor agnostic again. And I think that 2018 was the big one where we released the first GPU live migration. There are a lot of firsts, I would say I have left in the middle, but then this is to summarize. These are some of the very grand firsts that we have done, and we are very proud of.
Yeah, Doug. I mean, one of the biggest firsts, really, and this kind of really alludes to what we've done together. Some of the biggest things was this VGPU. A lot of people don't realize when Sagnik mentions the Boeing project, that was actually designing the 787, the kind of like the Dreamliner back in the days, and that was Project Pixtor was the name internally to Citrix, and what that was it was enabling a GPU to be a part of a Zen desktop, Zen apps type solution, and that enabled graphics capabilities for doing rendering and things. It enabled Boeing to centralize their data and farm that out all across the world for that to be developed. The biggest first, like I was alluding to here, was really the advent of VGPU. So we call it VGPU, but what is it? What is so significant about what we've created? You heard me when I introduced myself saying that I'm a part of the Grid VGPU or the Grid software team, and VGPU is really a software solution. And what it is it's a solution that enables us to put a single or multiple graphic cards in a host. And once we have that in a host, we can now carve that graphics card up into these virtual GPUs. So we can take a single GPU and now we can create, up to, 32 virtual GPUs off of it. So it enables more than one user to share that graphics card. In the early 2006 Pixtor days, we were one graphics card to one user experience. So like Sotnik was mentioning, the cost there, absolutely fantastic solution for that super high-end user, but maybe not for everybody else, and not everybody uses those. So what NVIDIA has done is we've created a technology that enables us to carve the GPU up, have multiple users share it, which gives us much better cost at scale, and more users being able to participate in that fantastic graphics experience there. So hopefully that sheds a little bit of light on kind of what we've done that's so significant from a first perspective. And I alluded to that I left Citrix, moved to NVIDIA right as we were announcing that virtual GPU solution that enabled that graphics at scale in a Citrix type deployment.
You got it. Jared, why do you think you have so many firsts with Citrix? Why? Is there a reason? Just curiosity. That makes me ask that.
Yeah, Citrix has been great to work with. If you look through the past, they've got some of the highest profile customers. They've got customers that just demand the absolute best. And so as they demanded the best, especially in the graphics capability, they're choosing the best graphics solution, they're choosing the best virtual desktop protocol solution, and they're coming to us and saying, hey, NVIDIA, hey, Citrix, we need this solution. So a lot of the first have been customer driven, which is great. So they've come to us, we work together. And from an engineering perspective, the engineering teams work really well together. They know each other now. And it's enabled us to kind of continue to drive this relationship of first, just due in part to the fact that our customers are helping drive us as well. The customer feedback that then we've answered and delivered upon.
That's cool. Very cool. So, this is a question that Jared, you and I always talk about whenever we see each other, is in the sense of it's something everyone asks. I guess today it's almost an obvious, but I wanted to ask it nonetheless. Is when do you need a solution like NVIDIA and Citrix together? Is it for average user? Do you require that? You know what I mean?
No, it's a good point. And traditionally, like we've been talking about, it was started out as the Boeing with leveraging, these high-end CAD, CAM engineering applications, and that was definitely where we kind of got pigeonholed into, was this use case of really high-end solutions. One of the big things that was really noticeable this year at Citrix Synergy was that is not the case, right? We have more and more users now that are your everyday average user that's just looking for a better experience. I like to say that the world is not getting less graphical. If you look at Windows 10 compared to Windows 7 and Windows XP, it's a night and day experience with the overall graphical experience. You've got everything from WebGL to Office now needing and wanting a GPU. And it's not necessarily for visualization. Some of it's just for using GPUs for parallel computing capabilities. And so we're now starting to see a lot more use cases around everybody needs a GPU or needs to be able to have that experience. And so it's not as cut and dry as it used to be, Doug. Hey, if you're running CAD/CAM, engineering, graphics, video, yeah, you need your GPU. Now it's, pretty, to put it bluntly, everybody can benefit from a GPU.
Yeah, I see it as, at the end of the day, you want to provide the very best user experience as possible, right? That's how our customers, and when I say customers, our users are our customers, right? We provide a service of deploying apps and desktops and what have you. And a GPU provides that best experience possible. So if at all possible, if you can afford it, it's something you should budget for. Then to me it's a requirement because it does provide that that really great user experience. And Jared, I think you've shared with me some numbers in the past where if you do provide have a GPU, you're actually offloading some process that the CPU used to or was forced to do, right? And in return, you manage to get more users on a box, right?
Yeah, so one of the things, another first that we did with Citrix is relating to the encoder. So if you look at a graphics card, there's more than just, graphics capabilities. There's encode engines, there's decode engines, there's, graphic engines. There's all these different engines that exist on a GPU. And for years within Citrix and even some of the VMware solutions that we work with, the encode decode engines were typically just used for processing video, right? If you're watching video, that's what they were used for. Those engines happen to be the best in the world at decoding and encoding like H.264, H.265 protocols. Well, if you look at the modern day HDX 3D Pro, it is a remarkable protocol, and it blew my mind as I moved over to NVIDIA and dove into how that protocol works. If you really understand how it works, and I encourage maybe a whole nother podcast on just analyzing that protocol, but there's all kinds of protocols taking place in the way that Citrix kind of analyzes the screen and will use this protocol for this and text and all kinds of things. But in the end, what they effectively do is they kind of wrap the whole experience in an H.264 and then send it to the user, and it's like an interactive, YouTube stream, if you will. Well, since it winds up being wrapped in kind of like an H.264, H.265 experience, one of the things that we worked on with Citrix was the ability to leverage the GPU to encode that. So in the past, the CPU had to do that encoding of the protocol. And so you have an overhead that exists on the host where it's now encoding the stream, the HDX 3D Pro stream to the users. Well, if you have a GPU, by default, you don't have to configure anything now. It recognizes you have a GPU, and the GPU will do the encoding. Now, it's super fast. It does it amazingly fast. And what it really does is that it decreases the input latency. Because it's so fast and it doesn't have to go to memory and all over the PCI bus, it does a great job with what we kind of call click to photon. It's that warm, fuzzy, feel-good experience of, when you click Start menu, it pops up instantly. And so, in conjunction with some of the great Citrix technologies, it provides the absolute best experience. And like you mentioned, it can free up resources on the host for better density, better scalability. And it's just a free resource there with the GPU and the host. So that was another first is what we call NV Inc., which is our NV encoder, HDX 3D Pro being able to take advantage of that.
Yeah, it's interesting, Jared. I've always said NVIDIA doesn't just power the or doesn't just power 3D graphics. It really powers the world, right? And I've always also said that Intel does not power the world. The GPU powers the world, right? I mean, it's not just for graphics; it's for about everything. AI. I mean, you name it.
There's a ton of stuff NVIDIA is doing, and it blows my mind nowadays. Working, can't believe I work for NVIDIA, but if you look at some of the things that are happening, it's not just graphics that we're working with. Nowadays it's everything from self-driving cars to automated manufacturing to data analytics. We both, Citrix and NVIDIA, have got great partnerships with SAP, where they're leveraging graphics cards for data analytics. A graphic card for data analytics, the reason being is that those graphic cards can do amazing things around parallel computing. About 8-9 years ago, we created a technology called CUDA. And what CUDA is it's a programming framework that allows developers to program against the GPU. So they can use programming languages. It's our programming language that gives them the ability to write against the GPU. And because of that language now, we have, millions of developers that have been able to, have the advent of this whole machine learning and artificial intelligence and data analytics and all these kind of sciences that have now come to fruition. So it's pretty cool to see, how broad this has become, out there in the industry.
Very cool. Very cool. Sotnik, anything to add to any of that?
Yeah, I mean, from Citrix perspective, how we see NVIDIA, one part is, of course, user density would improve when the CPU gets much more free. And how we see it as well, another advantage is from the cost savings perspective, is when you have a graphics hypervisor supported, which is like something like Citrix Hypervisor or even Nutanix. I mean, we have this bundled solution that we did together with Nutanix and NVIDIA, where we demonstrate how together our solution, we are able to offer a simple blueprint to deliver these high-end graphics, and not just high-end, even Windows 10 for the matter, because at the end of the day, we are able to reduce the administrative overhead. There's a lot of automation in the workflows in the setup that Nutanix does in their side of the infrastructure. We simplify the overall infrastructure requirements, and we also save tremendously on hypervisor cost, because there's no vTax that when Nutanix AHV offers or Citrix Hypervisor. So it overall improves the end user experience. It reduces your administrative overhead and the cost. So that's where we see NVIDIA and Citrix is very powerful, with all these ecosystem being improved more and more. So yeah, and with this more and more adoption of Windows 10, I see a lot more adoption of our technologies working together as well.
You got it.
That's a good point. I mean, you mentioned the first, and you mentioned kind of what's new. I guess sometimes for me, I being on the product side, first is something that happens like within the last month or so, but I really could look back at like 6 months or so. And one of the first that I think is pretty significant, which Sotnik is kind of alluding to, is we now not only have graphics, VGPU functionality on Zen Server, on vSphere, but we also have that with AHV now and Nutanix. And so some of the things that I think he's alluding to is, platforms and bundles that we now are working on together that are, kind of end-to-end holistic solutions where you've got, Nutanix and Prism and AHV with GPUs, with virtual GPUs, with Citrix, kind of a complete bundle, which is pretty cool. It really, when you get a lot of these vendors to where they're all in alignment and they're testing and validating the solution, it just provides for an amazing experience for, the admins, the end users. And that's something that's been happening with, the Nutanix relationship is, some great partnerships and some great first in regards to that solution now supporting VGPU.
That's great. So, we talked about first and what's new. What does the future hold?
Well, obviously, some of the future we can't talk about. Some of the future, we've got some. You probably can look at some of the shows that are coming up, right? So, we've got some neat shows that we'll be at. If you look at, VMworld, there'll be probably some announcements that take place there. One of the things that we can allude to, kind of what the future looks at, and kind of maybe we should spin this around trends that we're starting to see, is a lot more of that graphical requirement, and us being able to deliver upon that. With Citrix, with NVIDIA, being able to deliver on those requirements that we see absolutely becoming important. Some of the other things that we're seeing as well, and are important to note, and that we've actually delivered upon, are multiple monitors and larger monitors. So, a really important thing that we're seeing is more 4K displays, multiple displays. So we actually made some changes to our virtual PC solution to support 4K, to support more larger profiles, larger resolutions now. But those are some really big things I think in the future that we're going to be seeing is a lot more displays at endpoints and a lot larger resolution. And customers don't need to worry about it because we are, at least from a graphics perspective, being able to support all of that now. But that's definitely, from a future perspective, something that people should keep an eye out for, is much larger displays, more monitors within our desktop solution. It's not that 1024 by 768, call center resolution anymore. We're getting into much larger displays and multiple displays that require more capabilities, and we're absolutely ready to be able to handle that.
You got it. Sotnik,
yeah. Go ahead, Jared.
The other trend we're starting to see, Doug, is what I alluded to earlier, with some of the partnerships with like an SAP. It's more compute-based applications. So, if you look at some of the announcements that took place at Synergy and some of those things around, Citrix's kind of AI, machine learning play around being able to provide, the intelligence of, where users are kind of logging in, how are they doing that? That's compute, that is graphics, graphics, there's engines behind that are providing that functionality. And I think we're going to see a trend in the industry to where more and more customers are looking for, within their CRM, ERP solutions, to be able to do predictive type analytics, taking all these data points and being able to analyze them real time. And so I think we'll see an uptick in that, in graphics cards being used for compute. And so, within maybe a Citrix deployment, being able to leverage those, kind of like desktops by day, compute by night, and being able to leverage those and kind of flip-flop them between the type of workload that you're looking to achieve.
Makes sense. So that being said, how can people test a virtual desktop with graphics? I get this question a lot. How can you test it? Are there tools out there? How do you guys do it?
So if you head out to the NVIDIA website, you actually go out to the grid section within the NVIDIA website. We have a TryGrid webpage, and that TryGrid webpage links off to Citrix.com. You can put in your information. It can connect you with a sales rep. It can connect you with that demo environment, and you can actually get your hands on a desktop that's graphics accelerated. You can take a look at a handful of applications that are pre-deployed there with models and Office and all these different things there, and experience it for yourself. So really, really cool capability that Citrix has put together that you can test that. If you're looking to look at a competitive solution between, what does it look like with VMware or Citrix, that solution is capable out there. So you can actually look at a compare and contrast between the two different solutions. But TryGrid, NVIDIA.com/TryGrid, Doug, would be the best place for people to go and take a look at the different solutions that are possible.
Perfect. Anything from the Citrix view on that one?
So from Citrix, you can go to the most of the information from NVIDIA side. We make sure that we update in keeping it up to date in the Citrix Ready marketplace. So the latest and the greatest the releases that we validate with NVIDIA is there in the citrixready.com website. So I would definitely recommend that. And just to talk about the future perspective from Citrix, we really believe in the principle of the any. Like, you should be able to access any application over any network and from any location, from any device. And what we see is growing as from the Windows 10 adoption and everything is from the client side. The experience has to be, it needs to be understood and it needs to be unified. So the new innovation from our side that I'm very excited about is the Citrix Workspace app, where we will be validating our thin clients with HDX 3D Pro VDAs, where using Citrix Workspace app, which will be the universal client that opens the door to all the workspace services. So just with Citrix Workspace app, you'll be able to access your Citrix virtual desktops and applications. You'll be able to get your Citrix files, which is Citrix Content Collaboration, which is formerly ShareFile, and all the Citrix networking cool stuff that we have already developed, and it's backward compatible. Like it's the same Citrix receiver, and plus the extra delta of whatever we are doing from Citrix Cloud Services. So that's something exciting.
Perfect. And along the same line, so, one is I just asked how you test it. Now, what if, you deploy it, now we need to monitor this. Is that possible in today's world? Maybe talk a bit about, your experience around monitoring and seeing if we're actually delivering what you say, what they require.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I mentioned I'm my title and the technical product manager with NVIDIA, but I also happen to own the SDK and our management monitoring solution. So, Doug, what I've worked on really hard is a lot of our vendors, management monitoring vendors. So this is like your Lakeside, Liquidware, ControlUp, EG Innovations, a lot of these different partners that we work with. What NVIDIA did is we realized that customers find monitoring and insight into their virtual desktop really important. So we actually had to kind of go back to the drawing board and make sure that we were exposing the appropriate APIs and SDKs so that these management monitoring solutions could gather insight about what's going on with the GPU. And so we did. And not only did we just expose like how much frame buffer is being consumed and how much, of the GPU is being used and how much of the encoder is being used, but we also exposed the ability for users or admins, help desk, solution architects. So in the design phase and the help desk phase and the kind of troubleshooting phase, we now can tell you, and all these vendors I'm talking about now can gather insight into, which applications are consuming the GPU. And so they've done a really good job implementing that feature. With the director and some of the management tools within Zen Server now, you can tell, how much, which VDIs have a GPU, which VDIs or desktops within your deployment are consuming, how much they're consuming. But that's hugely important for being able to kind of have that insight into what's going on. But that's kind of close and dear to my heart around that. And we now have exposed that data for all these different vendors to consume. So you want to know it, we can now show it, and these vendors have done a great job of implementing it. It's now not a question of who can do it. It's more of a question of who can't, because really everybody now has the ability to grab that insight around the GPU within virtual desktop.
And one more thing here is like we have worked hard to even consolidate these data that you receive. So as the director can show you a lot of these graphic things, and as well you can see some of the monitoring from this and server as perspective. And HDX 3D Pro, the option for an admin as well. So if he wants to get data from an HDX 3D Pro machine, he'll need to, if he wants to get that delivered for his end users, there was a different VDA that he needed to. At the starting option, he has to choose HDX 3D Pro, but starting 7.16, we have consolidated that experience of installing his VDAs as well. So from the admin, he has to just he can just select it from even after the installation. He can just go ahead and select the policies and switch the HDX 3D Pro and use the NVIDIA graphics at the backward and get those data analytics provided through the to the HDX monitor tool and so forth. So yeah, pretty cool.
Very cool. It is pretty cool. You're so right. So, Jared, you mentioned earlier, both of you guys, I think, did, is Citrix Synergy, and it wasn't long ago. And I know there were some highlights, not just what you had already mentioned, or even, just in general. Would you like to share some of the, your highlights from Synergy with all of us?
Yeah, Sagnik, I'll let you go first, and then I'll kind of close out.
Yeah, so I think one of the major success is is the digital workspace winner. NVIDIA won that award that shows the innovation that they're doing in the digital workspace, digital transformation space with us. So we are very much excited about that. And from more, we had a lot of booth traction about we showed this live demo of the virtual live migration that's actually happening, and we did a lot of videos shooting on showcasing that feature. And I think a lot of customer visits, and a lot of customers were asking for that feature, and it's being delivered. And from demo's perspective, it's so easy, right? It's just like you would not feel a thing, even if the machine is actually moving from one host to another host. The experience stays. It's such a simple demo to show. So I think that was one of the couple of things that really comes up, and we're looking forward for more of the Citrix and NVIDIA relationship.
Yeah, for us, it was a great show. We had an amazing amount of traffic. We had, a lot of great announcements in regards to, the live migration. There's huge traffic around people, begging for that feature for years. Now that was possible. We appreciate TechTarget and, the award that we were able to win there. That was obviously great. It's always great to kind of bring that home. One of the things for me, though, kind of, unrelated to that stuff that was significant is I've been at a lot of Synergies, and I've been almost to every one since I've joined NVIDIA. And in the past, we always got this weird look. A lot of people would come up to us and they'd be like, hey, can I get a new 980 graphics gaming card? Or what are you guys doing here? There's a lot of people confused as to why NVIDIA was at the show. They kind of just pigeonholed us into this. Oh, I see. You're for that CAD CAM engineering stuff. Or, NVIDIA's, you guys are doing gaming now? They've never associated us as, being a critical part to virtual desktop. But there was a significant change this year. I had more customers come up to me saying, it is so great to see you. I have M10s. I have P4s. I have P40s in my deployment. And in talking with them, it wasn't high-end users. It wasn't those CAD-CAM engineering. It was just because they wanted the best experience for their users. So there seems to be a shift taking place to where, we've alluded to, hey, graphics for everybody. It makes sense for everybody. But this was a year to where there was no question as to why NVIDIA was at the show. People got it. They understood that, we're there to provide and be a part of providing the absolute best user experience. And if you want that, you use Citrix and you use NVIDIA together to provide that for all of your users. And it was kind of a monumental change for me, as I didn't have people coming up and looking up at the booth, looking at NVIDIA, looking for like games or engineering apps and saying, what are you guys doing here? It was really an understanding of people saying, I want the best experience for my users. I get why you're here. Help me make the right decision and what card should I be using and what should I be doing for my users. So it was kind of a cool experience for me is I didn't get one person coming up saying, why are you here? Oh, you guys are for high-end use cases. They really got that, we're for everybody, which was neat.
That's excellent.
And yes, that is so true. In fact, like I was conversing with these Lakeside folks there, and they did this research where they mentioned about Windows 10 requiring 32% more computer graphics, which like they measured by the calls of the DirectX and OpenGL than these Windows 7. And so like I could sense that why customers are actually wanting this Citrix and NVIDIA joint solution. So I mean, it's very clear.
So we deal with a lot of users that will kind of counter that. They'll be like, no, you there's not 32 more graphics. If you want to do Windows 10, you could do it without a graphics card. Look, here's a deployment guide. And if you look at the deployment guide, it's turn off Arrow, turn off this graphics, turn off this. Essentially, if you want to do it, you got to turn everything off and make it look like Windows XP again.
Yeah.
And now you have an experience that's, subprime to, what they can get on a, $200 netbook, which is a better experience than their VDI at that point because they turned everything off. So yeah, you can do it, but is that what you want to provide your users? You want to provide them a subpar experience. And so with the graphics card, you're now able to keep that stuff turned on, provide the experience as it was intended. And, Microsoft's starting to make it harder to turn that stuff off anyway. They want that experience. They've worked hard on it. And so that's a capability now that is becoming an expectation, and graphics in those VDI deployments can really help with that.
Yeah, well, that's what I said earlier. Is that the question is, if you need it, it's do you want to provide a good user experience to your end user? Is that what you're here for? Yes. Okay, then yes, you do need it. It's not a question, right?
Exactly.
So, the other thing is, I agree with you, Jared. Me being at Synergy, it was the same thing for me at Agile. Before they weren't, hey, what do you guys do? They were all like, hey, we know exactly what you do. It's so cool. Can I go play the racing game? Which is all powered by NVIDIA, right? And that was really cool too. The other thing I thought was really great, and I have it in my hand, my little grubby paws right now, is the coolest giveaway I've ever been given at a show in my life, and it's the NVIDIA Ruler. So if anyone managed to pick one of these things up, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's just done right.
It's pretty cool. It's a PCB, right? So it's actually leveraged for interns and a lot of our engineering teams. So what it is, if you guys can imagine this, and it's not Google it, but it's a ruler that's made out of a PCB, so the actual green board that a graphics card would go on, but it has the reference parts. So it actually's got, they release them every time a new chip comes out. And so it's actually got like the different versions of the chips and the die sizes, and it's got different components, and it's for reference. So it's a really cool thing. It definitely is a super geek giveaway.
Yes.
A lot of people looked at it, Doug, and we're like, "You're giving away a ruler?" but then when they pay attention to it, they're like, "Ooh, this isn't just a ruler. That's pretty cool."
Yeah, it's super. Sotnik, did you see one of these things? Were you at Synergy by chance?
Yeah, I was, and I'm feeling jealous of you now. I didn't get one.
I actually managed to pick up two of them, and I gave one to a buddy of mine that I thought he was going to get down and kiss my feet for giving it to him because he was so. And I picked up two just so I can make somebody extremely happy because it is really the coolest giveaway I've ever picked up at a show, right? Other than when you would get the USB thumb drives back in 2001 when they're like $100 for pop, right? But really
Doug, I happen to have a few of those rulers. I don't know if we do giveaways associated to the podcast, but maybe we can do some form of something relating to comments, or if somebody has listened this far into the podcast and they make a comment, maybe they can reach out and you can send me an address. And I'll send them,
if you have one, you need to send one to Sotnik, and then the rest, guys, maybe tweet about it. Just say, hey, we heard the podcast show, we liked it. Maybe give a use case, right? We're using it other than the typical, or some success, or maybe an end user feedback where it's like, oh my, I can't believe what a difference it was before and after. And just tweet it, copy it.
All right, let's do this. Whoever tweets it, I'm at VenJCC. Everybody knows your handle, but maybe if they CC us on a CCC on a tweet or something, we'll figure out, and we'll get them a ruler, and they can see how cool they really are.
Exactly.
Hashtag NVIDIA, hashtag Citrix Ready.
I'm sorry, Sotnik, say that again.
Yeah, hashtag NVIDIA, hashtag Citrix Ready. I think we would need to monitor that. Yep.
You got it. It is the coolest giveaway I've ever been given. So like I said, I have it in my hand, and it's just downright neat. And I did show it to my girlfriend, who's an uber nerd, and she didn't find it that cool. But I told her if you paid close attention, you would. So you're not as nerdy as I once thought you were. But anyway. So which I think made her happy. But anyway, The last question I have for you is, which is usually the future, right? But I'm going to wrap it because we sort of talked about the future a little bit ago, and you're like, oh, I can't tell you everything about the future. But any trends that you're seeing? You've mentioned some trends, but anything else you'd like to mention before we call this an episode?
Yeah, so pay attention to when you're designing, right? A lot of the people listening to this are, consultants, solution architects. One of the things I'm seeing that's really trendy is kind of back to that endpoint. I think people always look at the host and the, what hypervisor I'm going to use, and they get into compare and contrast between, Citrix and VMware and this, that, and the other. But don't forget that endpoint. One of the things that I'm seeing here is that the endpoint's really critical in regards to the holistic experience. And what we're seeing at the endpoint is, like I mentioned earlier, is a lot bigger displays, a lot higher resolution, and that drives more bandwidth. It drives more CPU and GPU usage. But make sure that in your overall solution, you pay attention to that. Doug, to kind of plug what you guys are doing, because you guys are doing some great stuff with your day job at iGel, that's a great solution for repurposing components. And we have a great partnership for repurposing that existing desktop, which is typically way more powerful than, a thin client, to be able to handle those larger displays, those 4K displays. But that's a big trend we're seeing, is a lot larger displays, a lot more displays. And with that, the need for graphics, the need for, higher end capabilities. So that'd be the biggest thing I would encourage people to make sure they're paying attention to in their architecture and the designs, is what that endpoint capability is. The next thing, I'll allude to is that compute capabilities. More and more applications are consuming CUDA functionality. So CUDA being that graphics compute capability. And so as more and more applications start to consume that, again, it's more of a need for graphics within desktop deployments that is happening as well. So pay attention to those two things. More applications that are taking advantage of compute and graphics functionality, and that endpoint. Don't forget about the endpoint. Larger monitors, larger displays. You go from one display to two displays, you've now potentially increased your need for graphics and or more bandwidth and all of those things. So that seems to be the piece that's being left out more. And Doug, you deal with this every day with your current new job, and it's really important that you have that holistic solution kind of defined. Don't forget about the everything from the endpoint to the GPU and the host.
Yeah, no, you're so right. I mean, we just released a new, what we call the UD7, which is a big, powerful, piece of hardware running the iGel software, which supports, multiple 4K displays and, and all that jazz. And you throw an NVIDIA in the back end, and oh my Lord, it's just such a beautiful experience, incredible, from this from soup to nuts. So you're exactly right, and we're seeing that trend from, from our side, right? Also, so I could not agree more. Sotnik?
Oh yes, so I'll definitely agree on the ecosystem thin client's perspective. The endpoint is critical. It is the access point that you're enabling. So it's definitely you need to make sure that it's an HDX 3D Pro ready device. So we have that segment very clearly listed. UD7 is one of the latest that we have tested, latest and the greatest, and it's amazing. Yeah, so I really like that solution.
It's a cool little box, isn't it? You just want one for your home, don't you? I don't even have one. I have a UD6. I don't have a UD7, but I need to put in an order for one just so I can have it.
Oh, I know that I can't take that home. Unfortunately, yeah. And I think another part is about the cloud simplification as well. So we have expanded our support for, it's not just on-prem that NVIDIA and Citrix works together. We have it even on Azure, and Series is supported. We have Google Suite supported. I think Oracle is also in the line. So I think we are hearing a lot of multi-cloud stories, and we want to make sure that we iterate that graphics use case is still is a use case even in the cloud or in prem. So it's universal.
That's a good point, Sotnik, that I probably should have started with is, one of the biggest trends, Doug, is cloud. Cloud is here. Cloud is real.
Yeah.
I hear almost no objections to cloud nowadays. It's what pieces are we not going to put in the cloud? Because kind of cloud first initiatives all over the place. And so, the way that NVIDIA has handled that is every tier one kind of cloud provider, we have GPUs in nowadays. So from the Googles to Microsofts to the AWSs to the soft layers, they all have GPU offerings that support HGX 3D Pro to compute. We're everywhere in that regards, and that's a really big trend. It's not I don't see customers that are everything on-prem anymore. I see a little bit of cloud there, a little bit of on-prem there, a little bit of like hosting there, and that's I think what we're seeing with Citrix with the marketplace kind of play with Workspace Cloud. Workspace Cloud is that kind of in the cloud studio and in the cloud gateway that now can access components that are on-prem, that are in the cloud. You have desktops that are in the cloud, applications that are in the cloud, some things that are on-prem. It's a pretty big paradigm shift. Probably need a whole other call to go over that trend that we're seeing, but it is it's quite significant, and it's here and it's real, and it's not going anywhere.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. And I'm sitting here in Germany, and I've always said, when the German market moves, being a very conservative place that always sort of measures 6 times and cuts once, right? It's not measure twice and cuts once. When you see those guys move, it's ready, it's there. And even in this market, it's definitely a cloud first mentality and then some. So that's a biggie right there. You got it. Jared, one more thing. Did you see that we're going to the NVIDIA headquarters next year for the IGL Disrupt conference? Did you see that?
I did, and
I'm so excited.
I'm a little nervous. I'm a little nervous, just because hopefully we can. I think we'll have the other building kind of in progress. But if you get a chance, we just broke ground on our second building, so it's going to be this amazing campus. And it's going to be exciting to have you guys there. But I love our new office, the new building that we put together, and it's going to be exciting to have you guys there. It's going to be quite an experience, and
I'm so
really
excited
because
neat campus. Yeah, I'm so excited because Jared showed me. I run into Jared. I've known him forever, right? And I ran into him. I don't remember where, but you on your iPad, you had a bunch of photos. Let me show you. Do you understand the buildings, the CPU or GPU or what? All this stuff, and I was like, so cool. From NVIDIA is as cool as they come, right? And as far as high tech, innovative. Just neat technologies. All right, they even one of my favorite things with NVIDIA is the moon landing video that a keynote thing where some people deny that we humans landed on the moon, right? NVIDIA sort of proved using their GPUs that yes, we landed on the moon, which I thought that was cool.
Yeah, what we did for that is, right, so you have all these conspiracy theorist people that are saying hey, the moon landing was fake. Well, what we did is we took all the pictures and we were able to take the time of day, where the sun would be, where the shadow should be casting, and we were able to simulate it. So we were able to say, all right, well, if the moon landing was fake, then the light would be off. So then we could take the picture, and we could say, all right, we know the sun's there. We could simulate the light rays that would be, that would be shining on the astronauts, and when they're walking around, and we were able to say, look, it's not fake because look, the light is here and the shadow's here, and we were able to simulate all those pictures and to prove that through that kind of ray tracing capability of the way the light bounces off of things, that look, don't see, it's real. Yep. So it's pretty cool project.
Really neat because the physics on the moon is different, right? And then the soil on the moon is more reflectant than soil that we find on the Earth. So it's not something you could just easily fake, right? And so I was so excited when I heard that because of everything you always preach to me, right? So I was like, oh, cool, I got to go to Jared's home. I'm very happy.
Well, when you go there, we'll have to throw you in VR and show you why we made changes in the initial design. It's pretty cool. The initial design of the building, had 90% more like skylights, and they were able to take time of day, time of year, and say, whoa, this is way too much light. We're going to sunburn people in the building. But then they were able to back those off and pick the appropriate amount of skylight to where it's the perfect amount of light without having to have lights. And we can actually go back in time within that kind of how the building was designed. And now they're updating things for the new Discover building. So the building that you're going to be a part of most likely will be Endeavor. That's what they call it. And they're getting ready they've broken ground on Discover, which is the new building. So when you get there, it'll probably be fully structured next year. And we'll probably be able to tour it, but it won't probably have people in it at that time. But it'll be neat to be able to see the full campus, at least skeletoned out. So excited to have you guys. It'll be a fun experience. I'll definitely be there.
Yeah, I'm very excited about the NVIDIA piece, and I'll definitely let you know, Jared. Hey, I'm landing at this time. Where are you? So it's fun stuff. Okay, guys. Thank you both very much. I always, come on. These are two of my favorite companies, Citrix and NVIDIA. So this is a true pleasure for me personally. On that note, I'll give you guys the last words if you have anything else to say, if we left anything out, and otherwise we'll call it a show. Sound good?
Sounds good.
I think that's yes. I think that we did a good job.
Go ahead. Yeah, definitely. If you get a chance, definitely reach out to us on Twitter, nvidia.com/trygrid. Great place to take a look at the solutions jointly with NVIDIA and Citrix. So I encourage you to take a look there. And, Doug, can't thank you enough for inviting us to this. We'd love to do this again. And if we get a chance, definitely let me know.
Yeah, Sotnik, anything?
Oh, yes. And from the Citrix Ready standpoint, I think there are a lot of cool joint integration stories that we have out there. Do check out the bundle solution program that we have done together, where you will get a list of white papers. We have all sorts of solutions, not only covering the NVIDIA and joint solutions, also with iGel that we have done recently. So there are more programs coming with the multi-cloud movement. So we'll be focusing on these, and we'll be creating more use cases. And also watch out for the Workspace app. Right now, it's I think near tech preview stage. And once we launch that, I think there'll be more of the validations from our thin clients perspective coming up. So from NVIDIA HDX 3D Pro adoption on the Workspace. So that will be another cool thing to look forward for.
Cool. Guys, thank you again so much for taking the time to do this. True pleasure. Well, what an episode. I love talking with those guys. So what else do I say? But check out what NVIDIA is doing, and of course, keep up to date with everything Citrix is doing. And as always, I want to thank my guests for today, Jared and Sotnik. And so much fun. I couldn't believe we talked for so long. A lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Definitely check out theabcc.com. And if you like the podcast, share it with a friend. I'm speechless. I had so much fun talking with these guys. So, if you enjoyed it, please tell a friend. That's how we grow. What else do I say? But thank you all for listening to DABCC Radio. Visit DABCC.com, download our apps, go to the Apple Store the Apple App Store. I told you I was sort of speechless. So it's so much fun to chat with these guys. I truly love doing these podcasts. And what's so much fun for me is to learn so much from these guys, and then go out to events and meet people that say, hey, I like the podcast. I heard about the podcast. I listen to the podcast. I learn all about these great stuff. And I would say, I do too. The secret is I do too. So what do I say? But again, thank you for listening to the ABCC Radio. I'll stop rambling. We'll just call it a show. Sound good? Okay. Have a great day.
CC?
DABCC.
Say it again. DABCC.
DABCC.
Can you say it again? DABCC.
DABCC.
How about DABCC?
DABCC.
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 DABCC.